Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it's time for what is going to be a very quick fire edition of Celtic Transfer Talk. I'm due in the asylum for ICW commentary in less than an hour's time, but nonetheless I decided why not, let's try and do this quick, let's try and get all that news out there, because so much has happened over the course of the weekend when you'd expect things to maybe slow down as Celtic actually play football. Nope, the exact opposite. Let's try and talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. We are trying to get to 50,000 subscribers as soon as possible. We're nearly at 48k, so keep going. Jump down below, hit all those buttons, it's absolutely free. And once again, I apologise for the quickfire nature of how this Celtic transfer talk is presented. I'm sure you can forgive me on this occasion. We're straight off the back of a members only live stream. I'm straight into commentary duties for ICW later tonight. This is somewhat sandwiched in the middle. A Ryan 118 sandwich, your favourite, I'm sure. Yeah. So transfer news has been hitting Celtic fans thick and fast, to the point where you don't really know what to trust and what to think. That's why I'm here today, to give my opinions, to see what looks realistic and what doesn't. I thought it would all slow down heading into Celtic's game in Dingwall yesterday. It's been the exact opposite. It's just got faster, quicker and more intense, the transfer news. So yeah, I'll try and cover some of it today. Hopefully we have more clarification by this time tomorrow to look at things in maybe a more level-headed manner. But let's lay it all out as it is at the point of recording. And let's start with this story, which of course is one of the big ones that has broke over the past few days. It initially was broken on Friday evening by Anthony Joseph of Sky Sports, saying that Celtic are in talks with Sarpsborg over a potential deal for winger Sondre, or I've still not looked up his pronunciation, Urgeseta. I'm going to have to look it up to get it right, so let me off with this episode of Celtic Transfer Talk. But Sondre Urgeseta, it's understood that Celtic have made first contact in early December with the Norwegian under-21 international, who has 2 years left on his current contract. Clubs in Italy and France are also keen. So that was the initial story that was broke by Anthony Joseph on Friday night, which is one that very, very quickly picked up traction. People tried to do more homework on the matter and find out more about it. The big stuff was that Celtic apparently have been following him from early December, that Celtic made initial contact back then because they want to beat the competition. We're hearing that clubs in Italy are interested, for example. We're hearing that clubs in France are interested, for example. And Celtic want to beat them to a key prospect in the Scandinavian market. However, what also came alongside that is the reports of how much that might cost Celtic. Because later on, Anthony Joseph then updated us, same night, by the way, that Sarpsborg are looking for a deal around £7 million for Sondre Urgeseta. Talks are still ongoing between Celtic and the Norwegian club. Fiorentina, Parma and Nice were name dropped as some of the clubs interested. Now this does seem like old news now. I'm bringing you this on Sunday afternoon when it came out on Friday night. Apologies for that. It's been obviously very busy on the channel. But £7 million for the winger. A lot of people already evaluating whether or not that equals value for money, if he's the right kind of player to spend £7 million on. He's very young, he's an under-21 international. This is the markets that ultimately Celtic are shopping in now, and if you want to sign talent, you need to spend the money to bring in said talent. I think that we've seen examples of it working well and not working so well in this past transfer window, where we've spent big on Arne Engels, for example, for that £11 million, and he's really coming into a game now and looking worth every penny. But then obviously we spent, close to £10 million on Adam Ida, who, has not really kicked on from spending that big money. So there is a lot of anxiety around spending fees like this on players, especially ones we don't know a lot about, and I think that's where most people will have their reservations with this story. Here is his profile on Transfermarkt. As you can see, is valued quite highly, €6 million. Celtic in the talks of £7 million for this. Here's his stats from the season of 2024. 5 goals and 7 assists in the Norwegian top flight, the Eliteserien. Playing currently, of course, for Sarpsborg, as we covered. Left winger, we need wingers. Now, we desperately need wingers, and with Luis Palma looking like almost certain that he is leaving the club, I don't think that this lad seems like a bad option. I would like to see us enhance our winger options in numbers. You know, I don't want us just to end at one. I would like to bring in somebody who can play back up to Nicholas Kuhn, because I don't think that Yang and the longevity that's no longer there with James Forrest is the answer. And of course, Palmer leaving means we have nobody as back up to Dyson Maeda. I think this lad looks okay. I mean, 15 goals, 15 assists inside 95. He's had 7 caps for the Norwegian under-21s. I would be lying if I said I knew an awful lot about him. But certainly somebody with the attributes you want for a winger. He looks so his finishing is good. Can cut inside, while also a bit of pace behind him. Obviously not the extent of Dyson Maeda's pace, but I like it. I like the look of him. And £7 million, it's a lot of money. These are the markets we need to ship in, though. So you can let me know what you think about this one. It looks more realistic than the next winger we're going to talk about. It looks very much the case that Celtic are going to try and make this happen, and I do believe what a better looking place to be than the likes of Fiorentina and such at the minute. Champions League football still very much on the cards here to come in and finish the season playing in Europe. Chance to come win trophies and use it as that stepping stone that I know we don't like, but is the case with Celtic. I think that this is one that I'm going to say thumbs up. I think it might happen, and I think Celtic are willing to pay that money now. Something has changed. Brendan Rodgers has obviously made it very clear to the board that this is the money we need to be spending, and if the manager wants him, I've always said it, I want him. And this is the other winger that we have to talk about, Gustav Isaacson, someone who we spoke about in the summer transfer window, who looked like a very good player. And trust me, when we spoke about him in the summer, I was all for it. I was like, bring him in, even if it's on loan, bring him in. He would be a quality signing for Celtic, playing at Lazio at this current minute in time in Serie A. Well, according to Mazzagero in Italy, Celtic are once again looking at the possibility of bringing in Gustav Isaacson alongside Bologna, who also like the prospect of signing him. The problem I've got with this, and the reason that I'm going to rubbish it straight away as well, 2 reasons. First of all, number one, I have never heard of this outlet, Mazzagero. I cannot stand up and tell you that they're a reliable outlet. I couldn't tell you anything about the journalists writing for them. I'm not exactly convinced that this one has much truth in it. I think that our name has probably been thrown in here after that summer story, and it's an easy bite for the journalists who are trying to link him with a move. The other reason is apparently €15 million, £12.5 million is the fee that they are commanding for Gustav Isaacson to go anywhere this season and in this January transfer window. They are open to selling them by all. Every story seems to point towards that they're open to selling them. Celtic aren't going to pay as much as that, I don't think. Not after spending big already on a couple of players, Ida and Engels, potentially $7 million on this Norwegian winger as well. I do think that this is a story that has been thrown together because of Celtic's prior interest. So, as much as I like the look of Gustav Isaacson, as much as I think he's somebody who would be a great signing for us and really add quality as a right winger, because he's predominantly a right winger, I just don't see it. As I mentioned in the article courtesy of 67 Hail, some decent enough stats this year for being in and out the team and you know, not having 90 minutes consistently every week. 2 goals and 2 assists in the league, a goal and assist in the Europa League, playing 4 of the Europa League games thus far. He does look a solid player, and I'm not saying that it's impossible. I don't see it. I think the most realistic option for Celtic to try and land Gustav Isaacson in this transfer window would be to loan him in until the end of the season and maybe have some sort of option to buy at the end of it. So if it was £12.5 million, say rising to £15 million that Lazio were trying to command, I think Celtic would be able to make a knowledgeable assessment between now and the end of the season to say, right, okay, we're willing to spend that big money. If we get the Champions League money in, again, we can dedicate a huge amount of that fee to bring in a player like Isaacson. But I think that Celtic will have the reservations of spending that much on a winger straight out the bat without knowing if the guaranteed quality is going to be there. He's still only 23, high ceiling for making profit on him, of course. Denmark international as well. This is somebody who I would love to see Celtic break the bank for. I'm a fan of the player, and I made that clear in the summer when we were first linked with him. Just the money alongside the legitimacy of the article it was published in, I'm not so sure on this one. And to end off the incomings section of the Celtic transfer talk today, we have Matthias Kvistgaarden. And it wouldn't be a Celtic transfer talk without Matthias Kvistgaarden. I think this is the 4th window in a row his name has now been linked with Celtic, and an exclusive from the Daily Express yesterday suggests that we have made contact with Matthias Kvistgaarden. Once again, you can only trust articles and certain journalists so far, and there might not be 100% truth in this, but the exclusive seems to suggest that Celtic have made contact with the quote-unquote Kyogo replacement as the January transfer race heats up. Their article went on to say that Celtic have made contact with Matthias Kvistgaarden's camp since the start of the January window, as Brendan Rodgers looks to spruce up his forward line. The Hoops are unlikely to swoop for Kvistgaarden this winter unless Kyogo leaves the club. And obviously the Atlanta United stuff was a big whirlwind of stories, and the links are still there. So Matthias Kvistgaarden, people are seeing these headlines and thinking, oh, he's coming, it's happening finally. I've seen people online getting prepared for his arrival, and trust me, I would be excited for the arrival of Kvistgaarden as well, because I think he looks great. I don't think Kyogo is going anywhere. By all accounts, from what I understand, from what I've been told, Kyogo is going nowhere in this January transfer window, which I think means that Kvistgaarden is not coming. Sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. That Kvistgaarden is not coming to Celtic in this January transfer window. I don't think. Now, Celtic could throw out a wild card signing and getting him in to prepare for any surprise summer departures, but I just don't see it happening. And listen, just to reiterate this point that I've had to reiterate the last few transfer windows with him, how many times have we read that Celtic have made contact with Matthias Kvistgaarden, with Brøndby, with his agent? It's happened every window in the last 4, and he's not became a Celtic player, and I think that's going to be the case again. I'm not denying that contact has been made. I do believe that there's clearly something here that Celtic and Brendan Rodgers like the player, if we've been linked with him for 18 months. But if Kyogo's not leaving, he's not coming in. Celtic just don't simply have the room for him at the minute. It would make no logical sense to have him, Ademiran Kyogo, at the club, despite what your opinions of certain players might be at the minute. Despite if Kyogo's only looking like he's coming back into form, despite if he does have a poor season, Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic board aren't a reactionary fan at the end of the day. They aren't going to go out and spend millions on a player who might not even get to play every week. So, yeah, he has been linked with us again. I really like the look of the player, and I think he might be one of the most ideal, if not the most ideal, replacement for Kyogo when he leaves the club. But I don't think that's happening, which I think throws this one to the side for now. The Daily Record did report the interest of Matthias Kvistgaarden leaving Denmark, and apparently he is very interested. Serious bids will be considered, and Brøndby have accepted that he will have to go. But if you remember back to the summer transfer window, and even the window before that, we were hearing the talks that Kvistgaarden will command a fee of upwards of £10 million. You're talking 10, maybe £15 million for Matthias Kvistgaarden. And ultimately Celtic aren't going to pay that on a striker while Kyogo is still here. So unless we do get a very unexpected, sudden departure for the wee man, and I hate to break it to you, if you're desperate to see him go, it ain't happening, then Kvistgaarden's just not coming in this window. And final story for today is related to Greg Taylor, who of course is a current Celtic player, might not be for much longer. His whole situation is very much in the air, but today, literally a couple of hours before I recorded this video, it was reported by The Record and other outlets that Trabzonspor want Greg Taylor to replace Borna Barisic. So he's another club that are in for him. That's now, I think, 4 clubs who are seriously interested, according to The Record and Mail Sport. That's Espanyol, Hull City, QPR and Trabzonspor. There was also reports the other day that came out that MLS clubs are in the ear of him as well. So yeah, this line here from Mail Sport, it's understood that if he does leave, he wants to play in Europe. His preference is still to stay at Celtic, apparently. Negotiations are ongoing, but the Kieran Tierney situation throws a whole bone in the works there for that. I do think that Greg Taylor will eventually move on. I would really be shocked if we see him stay at this point. It's went on so long that I'm convinced that he's away. Even in his own head, I'm convinced he's away. But that's not for me to comment on or speculate about. These teams, Trabzonspor, Hull, QPR, Espanyol, none of them the level of Celtic. None of them offering and I'm sorry, I don't mean it with any disrespect to these clubs, who in their own ways are big teams, but none of them offer the qualities that Celtic do. I think the on and off the pitch, European football, the stature of the club, the players that they're playing with. I think if Greg Taylor was willing to just accept that role as being second fiddle to Tierney, it would be a very easy decision. But clearly that is what's playing in his mind at the minute. Does he want to be a second fiddle? And I understand why he might not want to be. So yeah, clubs are ramping up the interest for Taylor as things stand, but nothing concrete yet. I need to go. If I don't go now, I'm going to be late. So if you've enjoyed, like and subscribe. Let me know all your opinions in the comments below. I apologise for the rushed nature of this video. Trust me, tomorrow, back to normal. I'm a working man, right? But please, leave me be. See you next time.